The Maldivian sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the pristine white sand of the Amara Resort's private beach. LeBron James stood at the edge of his overwater villa's deck, basketball-calloused fingers wrapped around a glass of coconut water, his mind far from the court where he'd made his name. The ocean breeze carried the faint scent of plumeria, and for once, he felt truly alone, a rare luxury for someone whose life had been lived in the spotlight since he was 16. He'd chosen this particular resort for its legendary privacy, a place where even someone of his stature could disappear for a few days. The NBA season had been grueling, and he needed this break, needed to shed the weight of expectations that came with being King James. What he hadn't expected was for the past to come crashing back into his life with the force of a championship-winning dunk. It happened at sunset, during the resort's exclusive beach dinner. LeBron had just settled into his private cabana when he saw her, Kaylee Clark. She looked exactly as she had 5 years ago, her copper-colored hair catching the dying light, her green eyes still holding that same sparkle that had once made him forget everything else in his world. She was speaking to one of the resort staff, completely unaware of his presence, and for a moment, he considered quietly slipping away. But then she turned, and their eyes met across the sand. Time seemed to freeze, the gentle lapping of waves against the shore becoming the only sound in the world. Kaylee's smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered, offering a small, almost imperceptible nod of recognition. LeBron felt his heart rate spike, a sensation he usually only experienced in the final seconds of a tight game. 5 years ago, their paths had crossed at a charity event in Chicago. What started as innocent conversation had evolved into late-night phone calls, secret meetings in out-of-the-way places, and eventually, a love affair that threatened to upend both their lives. They'd ended it abruptly, mutually agreeing that the cost was too high, the potential fallout too devastating. They'd promised never to contact each other again. Yet here they were, fate dealing them an unexpected hand. LeBron was about to stand, to do what he wasn't quite sure, when his phone buzzed with a text message. His stomach dropped as he read it. "Surprise. Thought I'd join you for a few days. Landing in 30 minutes. Can't wait to see you. Red Heart, Savannah." He looked up from his phone to find Kaylee still watching him, a knowing look in her eyes. She'd always been able to read him like a book, even from across a room. The resort suddenly felt very small, the air heavy with unspoken words and buried memories. As the sun disappeared beneath the horizon, LeBron James, a man who had faced down the greatest athletes in the world without flinching, felt true fear for the first time in years. In less than an hour, his wife would arrive at this exclusive paradise. And somewhere in the gathering darkness, the woman who had nearly changed the course of his life was watching, holding secrets that could shatter the careful balance he'd maintained for half a decade. The night was just beginning, and already he could feel control slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. As he stood to return to his villa, preparing to meet Savannah at the resort's private airstrip, he caught one last glimpse of Kaylee disappearing into the beachside restaurant. She was wearing a familiar pendant, one he'd given her on their last night together in Chicago. Some memories, it seemed, refused to stay buried in the past. A cool breeze swept across the beach, carrying with it the distant sound of an approaching seaplane. Time was running out, and LeBron James, master of the fourth quarter, found himself in a game where he wasn't sure he could emerge victorious. The pieces were set, the players in position, and the next few days would either strengthen the life he'd built or tear it apart completely. Either way, paradise would never be the same. The seaplane's arrival scattered diamond droplets across the lagoon's surface, its pontoons kissing the water in a graceful landing. LeBron stood at the private dock, watching as Savannah emerged, looking fresh despite the long journey. She practically floated down the wooden walkway toward him, her flowing white sundress catching the evening breeze. Her smile, the one that had anchored him through championships and defeats alike, made his guilt weigh even heavier. "Baby, this place is incredible," Savannah exclaimed, wrapping her arms around his neck. He embraced her, breathing in her familiar scent, trying to push thoughts of Kaylee from his mind. But even as he held his wife, he found himself scanning the darkness behind her, wondering if a pair of green eyes were watching from somewhere in the shadows. "Let's get you settled," he said, taking her hand. "The villa's amazing. You're going to love it." They walked along the torch-lit pathway, Savannah chattering excitedly about her spontaneous decision to join him. LeBron nodded and smiled at all the right moments, but his attention kept drifting to the beachside restaurant where he'd last seen Kaylee. The lights were still on, music and laughter drifting across the sand. "We should have dinner," Savannah suggested, following his gaze. "It looks lovely over there." Before LeBron could formulate an excuse, they rounded a corner and came face to face with Kaylee. She was leaving the restaurant, her copper hair now pulled back in an elegant knot, wearing a deep blue dress that made her eyes seem to glow in the torchlight. Time seemed to stretch like warm honey as the three of them stood frozen in tableau. Kaylee recovered first. "Oh my God, LeBron James!" she exclaimed, her voice carrying just the right note of surprised enthusiasm. "I thought that was you at the beach earlier." She turned to Savannah with a warm smile. "And you must be Savannah. I'm Kaylee Clark. I'm here doing a piece on luxury resorts for travel and leisure." LeBron felt a bead of sweat roll down his back despite the cool evening air. Kaylee had always been quick on her feet, but this performance was masterful. She'd created the perfect cover story while simultaneously ensuring they'd have to acknowledge knowing each other if they crossed paths again. Savannah, ever gracious, smiled back. "That sounds fascinating. Are you enjoying your stay?" "It's paradise," Kaylee replied, her eyes flickering briefly to LeBron's face. "Though I imagine it's a bit more peaceful than what you're used to with all the excitement of the NBA season." "That's exactly why we're here," Savannah laughed, threading her arm through LeBron's. "Sometimes you just need to escape, you know?" "Oh, I know all about escape," Kaylee said softly, her words carrying a weight that only LeBron could feel. "Well, I won't keep you. Have a wonderful evening." As she walked away, LeBron noticed she was still wearing the pendant. Savannah noticed too. "What a beautiful necklace she had," she commented. "It looked like one of those vintage pieces from that jeweler in Chicago you like. What was his name?" "The one who made my anniversary pendant." LeBron's throat went dry. The pendant had indeed come from the same jeweler. He'd bought them during the same visit, one for his wife, one for his lover. It was the kind of reckless mistake that came from living a double life. And now it was sitting there in plain sight, a ticking time bomb around Kaylee's neck. "Should we head to dinner?" he asked quickly, steering Savannah toward their villa. "You must be hungry after the flight." Later that night, as Savannah slept peacefully beside him, LeBron stood on their private deck, staring out at the moonlit water. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Sunrise. The hidden cove past the reef point. Come alone." He deleted the message immediately, but sleep eluded him. In the dark hours before dawn, he found himself remembering the last time he'd seen Kaylee before tonight. They'd agreed to end things, to protect everyone involved, to do the right thing. But standing in their Chicago hotel room, she'd said something that haunted him still. "Some secrets don't stay buried forever, LeBron. They grow like seeds in the dark, pushing up through whatever we pile on top of them." As the first hints of pink touched the eastern sky, LeBron slipped out of bed. He left a note for Savannah saying he was going for his morning workout. The hidden cove wasn't far, and he knew whatever waited for him there would change everything. Again, paradise, he was learning, could be its own kind of hell. The hidden cove lived up to its name, sheltered from the main resort by a curving wall of volcanic rock. Dawn painted the sky in watercolor shades of pink and gold as LeBron made his way along the narrow beach path. The sound of his footsteps in the sand seemed unnaturally loud in the morning stillness. Kaylee was already there, perched on a piece of driftwood, her bare feet tracing patterns in the sand. She wore simple linen shorts and a white beach shirt, her copper hair loose around her shoulders. The pendant gleamed at her throat. "You're still wearing it," he said by way of greeting. She touched the jewelry absently. "Some things are hard to let go of." Her green eyes met his, like the truth about that night in Chicago. LeBron felt his chest tighten. We agreed never to talk about that. That was before, Kaylee said, standing up. Before I found out I was pregnant. The words hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back a step, his mind racing. What? But we lost it, she finished quietly. 2 months later. I never told you because we'd already ended things. I thought I could carry that burden alone. She turned to face the rising sun. But seeing you here, seeing her, I can't keep pretending it never happened. Why tell me now? LeBron's voice was barely a whisper. Because I'm tired of secrets. Because every time I see you on TV with your perfect family, something inside me breaks a little more. She pulled the pendant over her head and held it out to him. Because Savannah noticed this last night, and it's only a matter of time before she puts it together. Before either of them could say more, they heard footsteps on the path. They turned to see Marcus Reynolds, another NBA player and one of LeBron's closest friends, standing there with a shocked expression on his face. He was staying at the resort too, something LeBron had completely forgotten in the chaos of the past day. LeBron? What? Marcus's eyes darted between them, taking in the scene, the pendant dangling from Kaylee's outstretched hand. Marcus, this isn't what it looks like, LeBron started, but Marcus was already backing away. Don't. Marcus held up his hands. Just don't. I came here to clear my head, not to get wrapped up in. He gestured vaguely at them. This. Please. Kaylee stepped forward. Let's explain. But Marcus had already turned and was quickly walking away. LeBron knew his friend well enough to read the conflict in his posture. Marcus was like a brother to him, but he was also close to Savannah. This was exactly the kind of situation that could destroy multiple relationships at once. We need to talk to him, Kaylee said urgently. Her words were cut off by the distant sound of a splash and a scream from the direction of the main resort. Both of them froze, then started running toward the noise. As they rounded the rocky outcropping, they saw a small crowd gathering at the main pool area. In the center of the commotion stood Savannah, soaking wet, being helped out of the pool by Marcus. She'd apparently slipped on the wet tiles while doing her morning yoga. As LeBron rushed forward, he could see she was more embarrassed than hurt, but then she looked up and saw him. With Kaylee right behind him, both of them breathing hard from running, both coming from the direction of the hidden cove. The look that crossed Savannah's face made LeBron's blood run cold. It was the same expression she'd worn years ago when she'd caught him in a lie about a late-night training session. She'd forgiven him then, choosing to trust him despite her doubts. But now, Marcus helped Savannah to her feet, whispering something in her ear. She nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving LeBron and Kaylee. The gathered crowd began to disperse, but the tension in the air remained electric. We should get you dried off, LeBron said, stepping forward. Actually, Savannah's voice was carefully controlled. I think Marcus can help me back to the villa. She turned to Kaylee, her smile razor-sharp. Since you're doing a piece on the resort, why don't you join us for dinner tonight? I'd love to hear more about your work. Before anyone could respond, she turned and walked away, Marcus supporting her elbow. LeBron watched them go, feeling the carefully constructed walls of his life beginning to crumble. She knows, Kaylee whispered beside him. Or at least, she suspects. This isn't going to end well, is it? LeBron asked, though he already knew the answer. Kaylee's laugh was bitter. It never does when you build a life on secrets. She pressed the pendant into his hand. Tonight will be interesting. As she walked away, LeBron stared at the jewelry in his palm, remembering the night he bought it. He'd been so careful then, using cash, visiting the jeweler after hours. But some secrets, as Kaylee had warned him, refused to stay buried. The sun was fully up now, its heat already intense. But LeBron felt cold as he watched his past and present colliding like storm fronts, knowing the thunder was yet to come. The resort's private dining room was set for 4, crystal glasses catching the light from suspended chandeliers. Outside, a storm was brewing, dark clouds gathering over the Indian Ocean. LeBron sat beside Savannah, watching lightning flicker on the horizon while they waited for their guests. Savannah hadn't spoken much since the pool incident, but she'd spent hours on her appearance for dinner. She wore a stunning red dress and the anniversary pendant, a calculated choice that hadn't escaped LeBron's notice. Her calm was unnerving. He'd seen this stillness before, but only on a basketball court, in opponents who were about to make their game-changing move. Marcus arrived first, looking uncomfortable in resort formal wear. He'd been avoiding LeBron all day, making excuses about calls and meetings. Now he sat across from them, fidgeting with his napkin. "Beautiful evening," he said, glancing at the approaching storm. Before anyone could respond, Kaylee appeared in the doorway. She'd chosen a simple black dress, elegant but understated. The space where her pendant usually rested was conspicuously bare. "Thank you for inviting me," she said, taking the remaining seat. "Though I admit I was surprised." Savannah smiled, touching her own pendant. "Why surprised? We're all friends here, aren't we?" "Well, some of us closer than others, apparently." A waiter appeared with champagne, oblivious to the tension. As he poured, Savannah raised her glass. "To old friends and new discoveries." The toast hung in the air like the thunder that rumbled outside. Marcus took a large swallow of his champagne. LeBron barely touched his. "So, Kaylee," Savannah continued, "tell us about your article. What angle are you taking?" "Actually," Kaylee set down her glass, "I need to be honest. I'm not here writing an article." LeBron's head snapped up. Marcus nearly choked on his champagne. "No." Savannah's voice was dangerously soft. "Then why are you here?" "Because I needed closure," Kaylee said, looking directly at LeBron. "Because 5 years ago, something happened in Chicago that changed my life, and I've never properly dealt with it." Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in stark white. In that instant, LeBron saw tears in Kaylee's eyes, determination in Savannah's face, and something like pity in Marcus's expression. "Chicago," Savannah repeated, "when my husband bought me this lovely pendant." She touched it again. "Funny how you used to wear one just like it." "Savannah," LeBron started, but she held up her hand. "No, let her finish. I want to hear about Chicago." Rain began to pound against the windows. "I want to hear about how my husband bought matching pendants. I want to hear about the baby you lost." The room went still. Marcus's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. Nobody moved to clean it up. "Ow," Kaylee whispered. "Did you think Marcus wouldn't tell me what he overheard this morning?" Savannah's composure cracked slightly. "He's been my friend longer than he's been yours, LeBron. And unlike some people in this room, he doesn't believe in keeping secrets." LeBron stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This isn't how this should happen." "How should it happen?" Savannah's voice rose. "Should I pretend I don't see what's right in front of me? Should I ignore the fact that while I was planning our anniversary party, you were buying jewelry for another woman? Should I forget that you've been lying to me for years?" "It wasn't years," Kaylee interjected. "It was 3 months. We ended it because he chose you." "He chose me." Savannah laughed bitterly. "He chose me after he got you pregnant? After he bought you matching jewelry? That's not choice, that's damage control." Thunder crashed directly overhead, making them all jump. In the momentary darkness that followed, Marcus quietly stood and left the room. Nobody tried to stop him. "I never meant to hurt anyone," Kaylee said softly. "I came here by chance, but seeing you both, I couldn't keep carrying this alone." "So you decided to destroy my marriage to make yourself feel better?" Savannah's words cut like glass. "No." Kaylee stood, tears now flowing freely. "I decided to tell the truth because secrets destroy more than honesty ever could." She turned to LeBron. "I am sorry for everything." As she walked toward the door, Savannah called after her. "The pendant. Where is it now?" Kaylee paused, but didn't turn around. "Ask your husband." The door closed behind her with a final sounding click. Lightning illuminated the room again, showing the devastation on both their faces. "Do you have it?" Savannah asked quietly. LeBron reached into his pocket and placed the pendant on the table. It lay there between them, gleaming dully in the storm-dark room. "I think," Savannah said, removing her own pendant, "these belong together." She placed hers next to its twin, just like our marriage belonged in the past. She stood, elegant even in her pain. "I'll have the resort arrange another villa for me. I suggest you do the same." As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. "You know what hurts the most? Not the affair, not even the baby. It's that you've had 5 years to tell me the truth, and you chose to let me find out like this." The door closed behind her, leaving LeBron alone with 2 pendants and the wreckage of his choices. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, an eerie calm had settled, the kind that comes when there's nothing left to lose. He reached for the pendants, but his hands were shaking too badly to grasp them. Instead, he sat in the darkness, listening to the rain, wondering how paradise had turned into purgatory so quickly. Dawn broke over the Amara Resort, the air clean and fresh after the night storm. LeBron stood on the beach, watching resort staff clear away debris from the sand. He hadn't slept, spending the night walking the shoreline, the 2 pendants heavy in his pocket. His phone buzzed with messages from his agent, his publicist, even a few teammates. News traveled fast in their circle, and Marcus's hasty departure from the resort had already sparked speculation. But there was nothing from Savannah. Her silence spoke volumes. He spotted Kaylee sitting alone at the beachside cafe, a cup of coffee cooling in front of her. She looked as exhausted as he felt. After a moment's hesitation, he walked over. "Mind if I join you?" She gestured to the empty chair. "Seems fitting. We started this mess together. Might as well end it together." He sat, placing the pendants on the table between them. The morning sun caught the metals, creating twin points of light. "I saw Savannah early this morning," Kaylee said quietly. "She was at the resort's yoga pavilion. We talked." LeBron's head snapped up. "What?" "She's stronger than either of us gave her credit for." Kaylee wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "She asked me about Chicago, about everything. No anger, no accusations. She just wanted the truth." "And you told her?" "Everything. About how we met at the charity event. How you tried to end it before it began. How I pushed for more." She looked out at the ocean. "About the night I found out I was pregnant and how terrified I was to tell you. About losing the baby alone in my apartment, too proud to call anyone." LeBron closed his eyes, the pain of what could have been washing over him afresh. "I should have been there." "No." Kaylee's voice was firm. "You should have been exactly where you were with your family. That's what I finally understood after talking to Savannah. We were living in a fantasy, LeBron. A beautiful, passionate fantasy, but not reality. And now reality's here to collect its due," he said bitterly. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." She pushed the pendants toward him. "These belong to a story that's ending. What matters is what story you choose to write next." A shadow fell across their table. They looked up to find Savannah standing there, composed and elegant in her morning workout clothes. LeBron started to stand, but she waved him back down. "Please, don't get up. I'm not staying." She looked between them. "I've booked a flight home. Marcus is driving me to the airport." "Savannah, LeBron began, but she cut him off. "Not now. Maybe not for a while." She took a deep breath. "I need time. To think, to process, to decide what I want my life to look like going forward. I deserve that much." "You deserve more than that," Kaylee said softly. Savannah's smile was sad, but genuine. "You know, in another life, we might have been friends, Kaylee. We're more alike than either of us probably wants to admit." She turned back to LeBron. "I'm not saying it's over, but I'm saying it will never be the same." She reached down and picked up one of the pendants, her original one. This, at least, was given with honest love. She slipped it into her pocket. "What you do with its twin is your choice, but choose wisely this time." With that, she walked away, her head held high. They watched her until she disappeared around the corner of the resort. "She's right," Kaylee said, standing. "About choosing wisely." She gathered her things, leaving the second pendant on the table. "I'm checking out today. My flight leaves this afternoon." "Where will you go?" "Back to Chicago. Back to my life." She smiled, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Back to reality. It's time we both did that." LeBron watched her walk away, her copper hair shining in the morning sun. When she was gone, he picked up the remaining pendant, feeling its weight one last time before slipping it into his pocket. He had some calls to make, to his agent about managing the inevitable media storm, to a counselor Savannah had mentioned wanting to see together, to Marcus to thank him for being the friend they all needed. The sun climbed higher, burning away the last traces of the storm. Resort guests began to appear on the beach, their laughter and chatter creating a soundtrack of normalcy. Life, LeBron realized, would go on. Different, harder in some ways, but perhaps more honest. He stood, taking one last look at the ocean. Paradise, he'd learned, wasn't a place you found. It was something you built day by day, choice by choice, truth by truth. And sometimes, you had to lose it completely before you could begin building something real. As he walked back to his villa to pack, he passed the resort's entrance sign, "Welcome to Paradise." Someone had added a quote below it in small letters. "The truth will set you free, but first it will break your heart." LeBron smiled slightly, feeling the weight of the pendant in his pocket. It was time to go home and face whatever waited there. Time to write a new story, one built on truth this time, whatever the cost. Behind him, the Maldivian sun continued its climb, indifferent to the dramas that had played out beneath it. Another perfect day in paradise was beginning, but LeBron James was ready to leave it behind. Sometimes he realized the hardest games were the ones played off the court, and the biggest victories came from knowing when to walk away.
Tell us in the comments what part of this story impressed you the most. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next videos. See you in the world of incredible events.